Hello, welcome to another real-life tutorial. It's a lovely day out, sun shining, wind's not too harsh, it's well above freezing, almost feels like spring, which kind of sucks because it's not even technically winter yet. But it's still a lovely day to be out. But it's not all good. With this warm weather comes an opportunity for invasive species to push their advantage. Which is why this tutorial will deal with how to find and destroy one of the worst of these real-life video game enemies, Multiflora rose. Now, this being a plant, you wouldn't really expect it to fight back, but like many video game enemies, these recurve thorns really make this plant quite aggressive, often without really much reason. In fact, oftentimes they get first strike. The thorns are generally not big enough to cause any serious damage. You're not really going to get a game over from this plant, but they do draw blood very often. This is also why I'm wearing a fairly thick jacket today. It's not for cold resistance, as I said, it's quite warm out. This is to stop the thorns. Of course, optional, do what you want, but having done this in short sleeves, I cannot recommend it. Identification is really simple. In fact, it's almost unnecessary because chances are you've probably seen this plant already and just didn't know it was invasive. But I'll go over the ways you can identify the plant anyway. Now, in most parts of the year, especially the winter, you'll see these red rose hips. These are a lot smaller in this species than in others, so this is probably the best identifier. As with many invasive species, the leaves are also often present in the winter, and they look like this. You'll also probably notice huge variation from plant to plant at this time of year. This is mostly due to the fact that, as a non-native plant, it doesn't really know how to respond to environmental stimuli, so it's confused as to when spring starts. The stem of the plant will be red or green, with somewhat faint lines running lengthwise. And now it comes time to actually deal with them. Do you use the bladed weapon, or do you use the clippers? The bladed tool, while effective for plants of all sizes, struggles in tight spaces. In contrast, the clippers, while great in tight spaces, struggle with anything that can't fit within their jaws. Certainly a difficult decision to make. Alternatively, just carry both, because why not? Now, I would be willing to bet you know how to use these, so I'm not going to go over that much, but I will give you some tips and tricks as you're going through these. First piece of advice, this isn't a race, move slowly. There's going to be a lot of thorns around, so if you move slower, you'll feel them before they actually hurt you. Second piece of advice, if you need to cut or move a dead branch to get better access to another live one, it's better to do that than to try and negotiate your hand around it, trust me. Similarly, tip number 3, you can grab the branches just by using the clippers. No need to hold them with your hand, oftentimes they're covered in thorns, which makes that quite difficult. And last tip, it's a good idea to multitask. If you see any other invasive species around, get rid of those too. There we go, all taken care of. I'll have to double check, especially in the spring, but that's as much as I can do for now. But there's only so much I can do. You've made it this far in the video, you know how to identify this plant and how to get rid of it. So at this point, it's up to you to do so. At the very least, I do hope you've learned something, and I wish you the best. Until next time.